So, economic crashes. There's some talk about an economic crash and about property prices crashing, and a repetition of what happened in 2008 when the Celtic Tiger property market came to a crashing halt. I don't believe that myself, don't think it'll happen, but obviously there is a certain amount of uncertainty with the worldwide economy at the moment. There's difficulties with inflation, there's the carry on there with the markets in the UK and the lack of confidence in the Liz Truss as Prime Minister and so on, and a complete about turn there. But whether there's an economic crash or not, there are lessons that I can share with you arising from two economic crashes. The first one was the one that I started off in business in 1986. Around 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, that period of time was an absolute disaster for the Irish economy. The public finances were in absolute bits. We had 3 general elections in 15 months. You had interest rates at 20% or thereabouts. You had immigration running at 20%. You had talk about the IMF coming in and being put in place at the central bank. And you had upheavals against Charlie Haughey in the Fianna Fáil party and in the government and so on. That was an appalling time, 1985, 86, 84. Very high immigration, high interest rates. I started off in business in 1986 though, and the first lesson from that economic crash was every economic crash throws up opportunities. I took advantage of an opportunity that was there, that I identified, and did really well. I made an investment, got a few bob to capital, bought a property, did well out of it, and the reason was because it was a shop property with an apartment overhead. It had closed down from trading. The economic conditions were so tight, but it was a good opportunity for somebody who was willing to work really, really hard and long hours, and myself and my brother were prepared to do that, and we did that, and we did really well. That was 1986, December 86. I'm not a great man for dates, etc., etc., but I mean, I do remember well the appalling situation around that time and leading up to that time, because I was actually going to go to England myself, but thankfully I got a job and one thing led to another, and then this opportunity came up and I took it. That was 86, December 86. Fast forward then to 2008. 2008, the Celtic property market, the Celtic Tiger property market came to a halt in, I think, around about 2008. I was well invested, embedded in the property market at that stage. I had a site in Longford, and I basically lost everything that it made over the previous 20 years or 15 years or whatever period of time it was. The lesson from that particular one, and to put it in context, at the time in 2008 or thereabouts, Dr. A.J.F. O'Reilly, Anthony O'Reilly and Sean Quinn were the 2 wealthiest men in Ireland. The lesson from that time is when the market goes against you, when the tide goes out, you're stranded more often than not. I was stranded, I got absolutely shafted, but O'Reilly and Quinn both went bankrupt, and they went bankrupt as a consequence, direct consequence or indirect consequence of the property market crashing, because Quinn had gambled on the Anglo-Irish shares, he had taken CFDs, but the Anglo-Irish Bank was very much tied up with the property market, and the crash in the property market had a knock-on consequence on the value of the shares, and Quinn then was left holding a pile of paper, and he went bankrupt. He declared bankruptcy. Dr. A.J.F. O'Reilly declared bankruptcy. They were 2 of the wealthiest men, if not the wealthiest men in the country at the time. So the lesson from that particular crash is when the tide goes out, the tide goes out. There's nothing you can do. You really need to formulate a plan B or a plan C or a plan D. You need to take it on the chin, pick yourself up and get on with it. But there's no point in whinging and crying and whining and saying why me, and why did the banks give me the money, and why did the property market crash, and why did the economists get it wrong, and why did the politicians get it wrong, and so on. There's no point, no future in that. It is completely counterproductive. So 2 lessons, 2 crises, 2 property or economic crashes. Opportunity on the one hand, The other lesson, obviously, if you're completely invested 100% in the market, you bet the farm in that market, and it goes against you, well, then there's no talking to it. Ask Sean Quinn, ask Dr. AJF O'Reilly. So they're the lessons that I have to share with you from 2 economic crashes. I don't think we'll have an economic crash now. I think the economy is in good shape. But what do I know? Bottom line is, you'll have economists, and you'll have solicitors, and you'll have accountants, and you'll have pundits, and you'll have commentators, all sorts of individuals, business persons, and so on and so forth. We all have an opinion, but opinions are just that, opinions. Nobody knows with any great degree of certainty how interest rates are going to go, etc., etc. Hope you find this video useful. If you do, I'd appreciate if you gave it the thumbs up down below. Thanks a lot.